Chapter 696, The Might of the Mysterious Array. Golden Eagle Mall. Shuiyu held Tang Xiu's hand as they slowly passed through each clothing store. The stores that could open its business here were all world-famous brands. Some people even said that this place was set up for the rich to spend their money, that even the cheapest underwear or pair of socks sold here was priced at 4 digits. "Who do you want to buy clothes for?" asked Shuiyu with a curious face, since she learned from Tang Xiu that he wanted to buy a set of woman's clothes. Tang Xiu did not try to conceal it and directly answered, "It's for Ouyang Lulu." Shuiyu had never heard of Ouyang Lulu's name and naturally did not know who she was. She did not even ask what kind of relationship she had with Tang Xiu and asked directly, "How old is she and what's the size of her body?" "She's about the same age as you, about 24 or 25 years old?" Tang Xiu shook his head with a forced smile. "As for the size of her body, well, I don't know about it." Shuiyu pondered, and then asked again, "But you should know her height, right? Is she busty, and how about her figure? And also, her nature?" Tang Xiu was rendered speechless and dumbfounded, being barraged by Shuiyu's series of questions. After a long while being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh, he asked, "You need to know one's nature if you want to buy clothes for that person?" "That is only natural," answered Shuiyu with a matter-of-factly expression. "I can determine what kind of clothes she likes if I know her character." Giving it a thought, Tang Xiu felt that what Shuiyu said was quite reasonable. With his description, Shuiyu straightly took him to several stores and finally chose a good coat, and then directly led him to a nearby underwear store and bought 3 sets of underwear that should be liked by a busty young woman. After half an hour, the duo left the Golden Eagle Mall and stood outside at the entrance. Tang Xiu looked at Shuiyu and asked, "I already bought the clothes, do you have other plans? Would you like to sit there with me?" "There's a bit of an issue I'd like to ask you about," said Shuiyu after hesitating for a short moment. "What is it?" asked Tang Xiu with a puzzled expression. "It's an issue related to an array," said Shuiyu. "You're not even a cultivator, what do you need to know about an issue with an array for?" Tang Xiu was curious. "You'll know of it after you go with me," said Shuiyu. After hesitating for a short while, Tang Xiu decided to follow Shuiyu to the Thompson villa. When he entered the villa, he saw that the place was still the same as before, even the quilt on the table was not moved or changed. When they came to Shuiyu's bedroom, Tang Xiu took a fast glance around and immediately asked, with a curious expression, "How do you have your meal here?" Shuiyu seemed to recall about it and then said, "I've been studying the array ever since I came here, and I think I haven't had any meals at all. Chu Yuan called me to go out and I planned to have a bite outside. Then, I finally bumped into you." Tang Xiu's brows slightly furrowed. He took out the mobile phone to dial Moao's cell number and ordered him to go to a nearby restaurant to buy a meal and send it over. After that, he then said, "What exactly is the situation with the array you mentioned?" Shuiyu then walked toward the dressing table, took out the yellowing book stitched with gold thread, and then handed it to Tang Xiu and said, "This book was given to me by the ancestress. She told me that I should thoroughly study it so I can help you crack the array of that immortal trove. I was planning to crack it myself so as to make you feel that I'm a useful woman to you. But, after I studied it and even used a forbidden divination art, the divination was only able to reveal the fragments of its abstruseness, and I couldn't fathom it after that." Tang Xiu took the book and read it. He immediately furrowed his brows, since the content recorded on the first page made him baffled. The 6 starlight array? It was an array he had never heard of. What was even more baffling to him was that the more he read the contents along with scrutinizing the 6 starlight array, the more his brows furrowed, until a pattern was shown on his forehead. The array was that of an extremely uncommon type as it seemingly grouped into a pattern that did not conform to the common pattern of array design at all, with extreme intricateness and meticulous design. He once researched the totems of the shaman clan in the Immortal world, and he found that the pattern of the array outlined on it was somewhat similar to the totems of the shaman clan, but this 6 starlight array was more profound. Shuiyu, tell me what you've comprehended about this 6-starlight array, said Tang Xiu after spending 2 hours reading more than 20 pages. What I understood about this 6-starlight array is pretty shallow. My comprehension of its details is very few and far between, yet it is still quite broad and profound. For example, the most basic outline structure of the pattern based on the lines of points as its supporting frame, while the whole entity itself served as an overseer of the pattern. The segmentation constituted by multiple diagrams, with each diagram separated by a distance to be distributed over an area around the crux as its central point. Wait. Tang Xiu's eyes suddenly lit up and reopened the 6-starlight array pattern in the chart. His fingers kept rubbing on it, while the trajectory of its paths rippled in his eyes, the basic point, the pattern root of the array, and its collocation. The triangle served as its power, whereas the whole entity served as a furnace. The steady stream flowed backward from the source, and once it was constructed with spiritual power, it would no longer be a simple array anymore. Feng Shui arrays generally only had one crux, while this 6-starlight array was different as it had 6 cruxes with each serving as an additional crux, that not only doubled its might but also repeatedly overlapped with each other to increase its might by dozens of times, and it was even possible that it could multiply the might for hundreds of times. Tang Xiu remembered the cave where Western nefarious Sangha planted the medicinal herbs. The inlaid soul tranquilizer stone and the solidified dragonite there were perfectly laid out to form this 6-starlight array. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Tang Xiu took out 5 pieces of jade from the interspatial ring. After visually measuring the distance between them, and separately differentiating each according to the 5 angles of the 6-starlight array, he then took a larger jade and placed it in the center position. Oh, it's not correct? After designing the pattern, Tang Xiu found that this simple arrangement of the 6-starlight array did not produce any effect at all, and also found some discrepancies as well. This 6-starlight. Suddenly, Tang Xiu's expression changed and he immediately put down the book. He then looked at Shuiyu and asked, "Was it Old Blind who gave this book to you?"
Yeah.
Shuiyu nodded. "She misled me," said Tang Xiu with an expression of being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. This chart is simply a mistake, and this 6-starlight array is just a prank. Anyways, I'm going to show you a new arrangement for this array, you can see it for yourself. With that said, Tang Xiu took another piece of jade from his interspatial ring and placed the other 6 in a different symmetrical orientation, with the same distance separation from the center. Afterward, when he put the last large jade in the middle, he continuously drew the outline of the pattern, which in the end instantly stimulated it. Boom. A dreadful aura formed on the table, as though a small windstorm had instantly smashed the table, penetrated the floor, and continued shooting down at an extremely fast speed. Oops. Tang Xiu's face changed and instantly released his primal chaos force to wrap the windstorm in nearly an instant and forcibly contained, while removing the array at a very fast speed. Shuiyu was forced back for 7+ steps from the windstorm that had just formed. After everything vanished, her eyes stared wide with a look of disbelief within. She ran back in front of the table, looking at the tabletop and the floor below. She could see that a circular hole with a diameter of more than 10 centimeters was created on the ground in the apartment below. It had to be noted that her bedroom was on the 2nd floor of the residential compound. Yet, it drilled down and penetrated 2 floors in a flash. Tang Xiu awkwardly scratched the back of his head and said with a forced smile, "I forgot you're living in a residential building, and neither did I expect that this array would erupt quickly the moment it was arranged. Luckily, I removed it in a timely manner. Had I been late by 10 seconds, that windstorm would not only create the hole in the center, but would definitely destroy the entire building." The might of an array was something Shuiyu had never seen before. At this time, her heart was jolted after hearing Tang Xiu's explanation, as it was her first time realizing how terrifying a cultivator was. Can you teach me to cultivate and step into the Tao?" There was anticipation in Shuiyu's eyes, but her nervousness was even more evident. Tang Shou pondered for a while before he slowly replied, my cultivation system is different. Though, in fact, it would not be inferior to those cultivators in your cultivation system once you have a breakthrough. For example, Old Blind. I know perfectly well about her strength, and even though some cultivators who are said to have a very good cultivation level, they may not be her match at all. I want to cultivate on both, said Shuiyu. Recalling Old Blind's aid in Kana's as well as considering that this woman did treat him well, Tang Shou finally nodded and said, since you want to become a cultivator, then I'll teach you a set of the Taoist cultivation system. Cultivating in both systems is actually easy, and though I'm not familiar with the circumstances with your cultivation system, I'm sure it won't have a conflict. I have seen many people who cultivated in many different cultivation techniques. Some of them were even able to leave their marks in the world, while some others, however, were distracted and it held them back. Since you've made up your mind with this choice, it will be up to your diligence and hard work later. Tang Shou was perfectly clear that even her closest person had a similar situation as Shuiyu, such as his disciple, Gu Yan, who was an immortal cultivator with a very formidable strength. Her cultivation level was already quite high, yet she also became an in-name disciple under the heavenly emperor Tianji, from whom she learned the deduction technique of divinatory art, and eventually found Earth. I can help find you a teacher if there's a chance later. Tang Shou's smile turned somewhat wider, for he suddenly felt that turning Shuiyu into a cultivator would not be a bad thing. If Gu Yan could give her some pointers, perhaps she would also have a chance to ascend to the immortal world in the future. Shuiyu herself was unaware of what Tang Shou was thinking, and asked curiously, what kind of teacher, exactly? Is it a teacher who can teach me cultivation and step into the Tao? Tang Shou chuckled, she indeed can teach you a cultivation system and make you step into the Tao, but not only that, since she also can teach you divinatory techniques. Furthermore, with her attainments in this aspect, not even the underworld nor the heavenly secrets are considered impossible subjects to her. You're kidding me, right? Shuiyu shook her head. Even if you do become a divine oracle, you're probably. Don't look at this issue from the angle of your mortal eyes. Tang Shou waved his hand to interrupt her. There are a lot of things you don't understand. You will only know about the abilities possessed by Taoist cultivators or immortal cultivators when you've reached a certain level of strength. Shuiyu seemed to have a hazy notion about it and curiously said, so, when will you teach me how to cultivate? Tang Shou corrected her, what I'm going to teach you is not a Taoist cultivation technique, but one of the immortals. But you must keep in mind that you are not allowed to pass this cultivation technique to anyone, no matter what. I promise. Shuiyu firmly nodded. Chapter 697, Dealing with the Damages. The differences between Taoist cultivators and immortal cultivators was something obscure to Shuiyu, so she did not ask anything on this issue. She had been anticipating to be taught an immortal cultivation technique by Tang Shou, that could elevate her to become a powerful figure in the future. She found that she had a strong interest in arrays, and decided that she must learn and study this field whenever she had the opportunity in the future. Hey, you haven't told me when you will teach me. Tang Shou looked at the time and seemingly remembering something, he asked, you said you haven't eaten anything yet, right? Didn't I already tell Ah to buy it? Ah has come back long ago, you know. Shuiyu smiled. You just didn't hear him coming since you were so infatuated in studying that book. Anyways, I'm not hungry. How about you teach me now? No need to rush now. Tang Shou shook his head. Let's have a bite first and then I'll teach you afterward. An hour later after Tang Shou and Shuiyu were full, the duo came back to the latter's bedroom and Tang Shou directly said, take off your clothes. I'll teach you how to identify the acupoints and meridians first. After you've thoroughly grasped them, I'll then impart you which channels to circulate according to the cultivation technique route. Take off my clothes? Shuiyu hesitated for a short while, but she still took her coat off without speaking. Then, she undressed the shirt underneath it under Tang Shou's watchful gaze. When there was only underwear left on her body, her white face had already turned beet red, and even the roots of her ears were slightly reddish. Never once had she ever worn so little on her body before any men since she was a child until becoming an adult, for there was a special custom for the tribes who lived in the Miao region that a girl born there must never let any men see her body, not even their fathers. Additionally, she was still a virgin and never had any physical contact with men. Even if she did prepare to give her first time to Tang Xiu, or even every time whenever he wanted it afterward, she still felt very embarrassed, shy, and nervous. Looking at Shuiyu's flawless body, Tang Xiu, who was originally going to start immediately, felt a flame starting to burn inside him after seeing her shy and blushing appearance. Despite having a firm self-control and venting his desire with Ouyang Lulu yesterday and today, yet that flame of desire was raging back like before. Undress everything. Sometimes, having experienced the first time would lead to the second, and having done it with someone would make one wanting the second one. For instance, a woman who went off the rails. It would be hard for her to escape from this aspect as she would put aside her restraint, believing that it did not matter if she did it again after doing it once. It was the kind of psychology Tang Xiu currently had at this moment. He had already occupied Ouyang Lulu's body, so it did not matter if he wanted Shuiyu's body as well. More so that he did not want to be fettered and bound by himself upon facing an attractive woman. Sikan, can I not take it off? I'm having a thought. Shuiyu's voice was a bit trembling and her ear turned redder. Tang Xiu stared blankly and suddenly could not help but groan inside. He felt somewhat awkward and yet vexed inside. He then touched his nose and said, if that is the case, let it be. I'll teach you as far as possible, perhaps you can memorize it well. All right. Shuiyu had been secretly observing Tang Xiu's expression, only to find herself a bit disappointed as different kinds of emotions were born inside her heart. Tang Xiu used to behave like a gentleman, and she thought that she did not have what it took to make him interested in her. And now, seeing that he looked disappointed, it made her realize that she was actually quite attractive. Time fleeted by. Just as the duo was immersed in the atmosphere of a teaching and of studying, a scream suddenly came from downstairs. It was a woman's scream and was piercingly loud. Shoot! The floor was just drilled through before and I forgot to deal with it. Tang Xiu jumped from the bed, grabbed Shuiyu's clothes, and threw them at her, saying, put on your clothes. Hurry. We gotta deal with this problem quickly before we continue. Realizing that they needed to address this issue now, Shuiyu quickly dressed up and followed Tang Xiu to the outside. When the two of them came down from the stairs, they saw a middle-aged man in pajamas rushing out of the compound, followed by a woman with disheveled hair. Are you the landlord of this compound? Asked Tang Xiu after looking at the two of them. The man seemed a bit flustered as well as angry after seeing Tang Xiu and Shuiyu coming down from the stairs and loudly said, that's right, this is my home. Who are you? We're the tenants of your compound, said Tang Xiu with a smile. I apologize for the small incident that caused the floor to be pierced and bore a hole in the ground. This has affected you, so other than wanting to apologize, I'd like to pay for the damages no matter how much it costs. I can accept that. The middle-aged man's expression instantly turned gloomier and he angrily replied, you want to pay compensation? Do you think this is something that can be solved just by paying compensation? My home was all good and neat, and then my roof was hit by something all of a sudden and created a hole there, and even 2 floors were pierced through. Get inside and have a look at my home yourself. Everything in my study room is in a mess, even my bedroom is like it was just burglarized. Tang Xiu knew that he was in the wrong and let out a hollow laugh, and then hurriedly said, don't worry about that, big brother. Let's talk about it. The fault is mine, and your life was also affected. Thus, I'll pay 10 times the compensation for everything. If you think it's troublesome, I'll immediately find a repairman and also buy all the damaged things in your house. The middle-aged man could feel Tang Xiu's sincerity as well as seeing his humble attitude. The anger inside him immediately vanished, and after being silent for a short while, he then slowly said, "What's your name?" "I'm Tang Xiu." The middle-aged man faintly felt that the name was familiar, but he could not remember where he had heard it. On the contrary, the woman who was currently tidying up her hair suddenly pointed to Tang Xiu and exclaimed, "I know you. You're the famous young miracle-working Dr. Tang Xiu, aren't you? Were you not in Star City? How come you're in Shanghai?" Upon hearing the reminder from his wife, the middle-aged man immediately remembered Tang Xiu's identity, and even his thought went far beyond that. "It turns out to be you, brother Tang Xiu. Alas, had I known earlier who you were, I would not have acted with that attitude just now. I've long heard about your resounding name." The middle-aged man laughed. "Big brother and big sis-in-law, I never thought you both would recognize me. But I really am apologizing for this incident since it has affected you both," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "Never mind it." The middle-aged man waved his hand. "It's like we are having a fight with a stranger at first, but then turns out that we're actually relatives. Hence, let's cut this ceremonial talk. Besides, people said that close neighbors are better than distant relatives, no? That's right, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Yu Kuizing, the chairman of Tiancheng Group, and this is my wife, Wang Xiaoya." The Tiancheng Group? Tang Xiu knew about this company, and there were only a few people in Shanghai who did not know it. The Tiancheng Group's main business was automobile retails, after-sales, and it also engaged in sales of mechanical parts. He also learned of the legendary figures in the business world while studying economics, and this man in front of him was one of them. Before Yu Kuizing turned 19, he was but a poor and destitute man who worked as a maintenance worker at a dealership. Later on, he resigned from the job and set up his own small repair shop. Since he possessed good skills, was honest and upright, he was eventually able to develop his business and opened a bigger repair shop after more than 2 years. Afterward, he decided to borrow a heavy loan from the bank and cooperated with several auto manufacturers that did not sell well in China. At the same time, they established 3 brands of Auto 4S shops. Because of his sincerity and shrewdness, his business got bigger and bigger, and then came into contact with high-end car businesses about more than a decade ago. Eventually, his business expanded and he now had at least a few billions of yuan in wealth. It was no wonder that he could afford to buy a residential house and lived in the most expensive area in China, the Thompson Villa. It turns out to be Big Brother Yu. I really have to blame my eyes for being unable to recognize you a while ago, said Tang Xiu with a smile. So to say, I read about you in some financial magazines, and also watched your interviews on TV. Huh? Brother Tang knows me too? Yu Kuizing was astonished. We both are businessmen, so it's only natural to pay more attention to other businessmen, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Especially you, big brother. You're a successful businessman yourself, so of course, I know you. Yu Kuizing felt flattered and happy by Tang Xiu's words. Though he did have billions in assets, he also knew who Tang Xiu's identity was. This owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation may act low-key, but he happened to have a good relationship with several wealthy people, his friends in the business world. Among them was Jing Xingkui, his brother, who often mentioned this brother Tang of his to him. All right. Come, brother Tang, and this one is. Anyways, let's talk inside. How do you do, big brother? How do you do, big sis-in-law? My name is Shuiyu, said Shuiyu with a smile. You're so beautiful, sis-in-law. Like a fairy, replied Wang Xiaoya with a smile. Brother Tang Xiu is really blessed to actually find himself such a beautiful wife like you. Tang Xiu did not elaborate on his relationship with Shuiyu. After entering Yu Kuizing's home, he first went to his study room and saw that the windstorm produced by the array turned out to have produced a much bigger mite, as it turned this study room in a complete mess. Standing in front of Tang Xiu, Yu Kuizing raised his head to look at the hole in the ceiling. He forced a wry smile and said, "Brother Tang, I can't help but marvel about something. How did you do it? To think that you actually made such a hole. You also know that my house is on the first floor." Before leaving downstairs, Tang Xiu had already thought about this problem and prepared an answer. So, he let out a dry chuckle and said, "The lab I just set up recently has developed a product with a special technology. This product is kind of related with the military, so I can't disclose it as it's under non-disclosure agreement. When I just arrived in the compound, I wanted to show it off to Shuiyu to demonstrate its power. Then, I finally remembered that I was upstairs, so..." Yu Kuweizing's countenance slightly changed. He did not expect that Tang Xiu had some involvement with the military, and immediately cancelled the thought to ask him about it. "Brother Yu, I hope you can help me keep this a secret. This product of technology is, after all, produced under cooperation with the military. Furthermore, the magnificent Tang Corporation must not make it known to the public. It will be very troublesome if you ever disclose this thing out." "I understand. You can rest assured about that," said Yu Kuweizing with a serious expression. Chapter 698, Strange Incidents. Unwilling to owe a favor due to damaging Yu Kuweizing's house and ruining many objects in it, Tang Xiu insisted to give compensation. He had a short chat with them since the day was almost over and hurriedly found maintenance workers in the property management office, of whom contacted someone who then spent 2 hours to patch the holes. Late at night, around midnight, Tang Xiu left the Thompson Villa complex. Though Shuiyu wanted him to stay, Ouyang Lulu was still at his home. After Tang Xiu and Shuiyu had a warm moment together, he then walked out of the villa's entrance. Back at his home, Tang Xiu saw the lights on the second floor lit up. Ouyang Lulu obviously had woken up. When getting there, he saw her leaning on the pillow while reading a fashion magazine and seemingly enjoying it. There was also a red jujube lotus seed soup off on the bedside cabinet. "How was it? Have you had enough rest?" Tang Xiu walked to the bed and said with a smile while watching Lulu, who was wearing a white sling that exposed her bare, lotus-like white and smooth arm and her sexy white flesh clavicle cleavage between the proud peaks. At the same time, he put down the clothes he bought for her. Lulu thought that Tang Xiu would not come back tonight, and she did not expect him to come back late at night. That made her happy and excited immediately. She sat on the bed and smilingly said, "I rested well, so very well and sweet. I dare say this is the longest time I've ever slept in my life, and also the most comfortable sleep I ever had." Tang Xiu pointed to the electronic clock hanging on the wall and said with a smile, "It's 30 past midnight. If you keep staying up like this, you'll probably end up tired and with no spirit during the day." "So what? I'll just sleep during the day at the worst," said Ouyang Lulu with a smile. "Anyways, what did you do today, and why did you come back so late?" "Accompanied a female friend of mine to her company, and then met my lover and went to her place. Shortly put, I did not do anything serious today, though I did meet some trashes. But forget it, let us not talk about that. I need to take a shower and sleep," said Tang Xiu without thinking. That night, Tang Xiu slept while embracing Ouyang Lulu. Though her smooth and delicate body made him eager to have another rumble, he then recalled that it was her first time bleeding, and she was also tossed about by him twice, hence why he restrained himself to do so. Early in the morning, when the first sunshine shone through the curtain gap into the room, Tang Xiu woke up from his sleep. Just as he wanted to move, Lulu, who slept like a docile kitten in his embrace, was awakened and then opened her eyes, asking, "What time is it?" Tang Xiu looked at the time and smilingly said, 8:10. Sitting up, Lulu then saw that Tang Xiu had turned over, got up and then immediately dressed up. She smiled at him and asked, "It's Sunday, what are you going to do?" "Got no plan as of now," answered Tang Xiu. "How about accompanying me to the Paradise Manor?" asked Ouyang Lulu. "You haven't been there for a long time, and my staff kind of thinking that you dumped me." Cough asterisk, cough, asterisk. Tang Shou coughed twice, looking a bit at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh, and said, "Your employees are really salty to worry about some useless stuff like others' business. Anyways, I guess it's fine to go with you today, though." "Oh. I bought some clothes for you yesterday. Try putting them on and see if they fit you." There was a surprised expression on Lulu's face. She took them over and had a look at them, and then asked with an incredulous expression, "Did you buy them for me?"
Yeah.
Tang Shou nodded. "Aren't your eyes way too amazing?" said Lulu incredulously. "Either the underwear or this coat, the style and color are the kinds I love. Honey, I think you should open a clothing factory directly. Your business will definitely become hot." Tang Shou was secretly embarrassed. He indeed bought these clothes, but he did not say he was the one who chose them. But seeing her expression, he did not want to mention Shuiyu, and just let out a faint smile and said, "All right, hurry up. Let's go to Paradise Manor after breakfast." "Got it." Lulu hurriedly jumped from the bed and quickly took off her underwear. She did not even try to conceal herself in front of Tang Shou, making his throat dry and the flames start to move into his crotch. So as to avoid the desire from arousing too much, he turned around and left the bedroom. "Boss." On the staircase on the first floor, Mo stood silently with a stack of documents in his hand. "Have you been waiting for me?" Tang Shou was surprised. "Is there something up?" Mo handed over the documents and said, "There was a mysterious incident in Minnan district. 4 women who were on their way to work in the nightclub were murdered. I received the news at 4 in the morning and caught up to the scene. When I got there, the cops had already blocked the scene, so I couldn't see the exact situation." "How would criminal cases have anything to do with us?" asked Tang Shou with a baffled expression. "You have never reported to me about this kind of information before." "I would never bother you with ordinary criminal cases," said Mo. "But the incident this time is different since those 4 dead bodies had all their blood sucked clean, all of them. Also, unusual traces of a fierce fight could be seen there from the photos taken from the scene. I have seen these fighting traces before. It should be caused by those divergent races." A divergent race? It was a term Tang Shou had never heard of after he returned to Earth, so he asked with a curious expression. "What exactly is this divergent race? What is their special trait, exactly? You also know many special species exist in the world. For instance, the fierce beasts who gain sentience," said Mo. "Also, there are some non-human existences, like the demi-humans such as vampire bats that can turn into humanoids, which are famously called as vampires. There are also demi-beastmen who are the half-breed of men and beasts, as well as wizards and magus who practice special arts or cultivation techniques. Those divergent races are mostly real human beings that possess extraordinary abilities." Tang Shou looked at the photos in his other hand, and also saw that it indeed had many unusual traces of a fierce fight, such as the ripped wall and the scattered paw prints with phosphorus powder, some kind of feathers and hairy flesh. "So, what you mean is that the murderer who killed those nightclub girls should be one with claws and feathers among the divergent races?" asked Tang Shou slowly. "They should be." Mo nodded. "I can tell from this information and photos that the ones who were involved in the fight have at least one from the Beastman, one of the Wingmen, and a vampire." Tang Shou frowned and commented, "Aren't all these things you told me coming from Western mythology? What are they doing in China?" "There are only a handful of cultivators in China as far as I know, and a few people with special abilities. How come I have never heard of these creatures from overseas before? These divergent races are also rare existences in foreign countries, but they really do exist in our world," said Mo. "Once in a battlefield I witnessed one of the beastmen slaughter many mercenaries, and also encountered a vampire in an old castle during an assassination mission with my 4 comrades. Other than me and one of my companions, the other 3 were all slaughtered in the hands of that vampire." My comrade and I injured that vampire with an anti-tank grenade before we were able to assassinate the target, and then escaped smoothly. You said these creatures are evil? Asked Tang Xiu with a frown. Our Everlasting Feast Hall conducted a secret investigation. Some other people even purchased this information from the Darkwind organization. Though we didn't obtain much information, it's conjectured that some of these divergent creatures are indeed inherently evil, but some others are not committing evil, nor indiscriminately killing innocent people. As a matter of fact, if not because of the chaotic situation in certain foreign countries, these divergent creatures would have been understood and been able to conceal themselves better than cultivators. Let alone ordinary people, even powerful figures with a formidable background would not be aware of their existence. Tang Xiu pondered for a short while and then slowly asked, with your current cultivation, how is your chance of defeating that beastman you saw in the battlefield or that vampire you met in that old castle? Mo Ao scrunched up for a moment before shaking his head and then said with a forced smile, I can't answer that. I was far away from that beastman then. Also, I saw him through high-end binoculars. His speed was very fast and he possessed powerful strength, as well as was being proficient in killing techniques. Simply his momentum and vigor were enough to destroy dozens of heavily armed mercenaries in just half a minute. As for the vampire, maybe I can kill him if I exert all my strength. That being the case, are they actually more powerful than middle-rank fierce beasts? Commented Tang Xiu in surprise. They should be. Mo Ao nodded. After all, they have the same level of intelligence as human beings, to begin with. Even some of those divergent races have higher intelligence than human beings, while in terms of speed and strength as well as attacking techniques, they are indeed comparable to middle-rank fierce beasts. Tang Xiu's eyes instantly lit up after hearing his explanation. He needed all sorts of natural resources for cultivation. If he could kill those vampires and beastman and then obtain the materials in their bodies for cultivation resources, then it would be great. Yet, the one thing that must be noted was that he must possess formidable strength since, in contrast, these divergent creatures also had their own cultivation systems. Their powerful strength and formidable bodies were a result of practicing their cultivation system, and thus, the materials that could be obtained from their carcasses would be better as well. Oh, how deep is the intelligence network built by our Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai? Asked Tang Xiu quickly. It should be at least several times stronger than the National Intelligence Agency, said Mo Ao. Though I don't dare say we have covered the entire Shanghai, I can say that we have assigned our intelligence personnel in nearly all the areas here. This is why I can receive information about murders by the divergent races and rush to the scene in a short time. If so, immediately send our people to investigate these divergent creatures, said Tang Xiu in a deep voice. Find them, whether they are vampires, beastman, or wingman ones, since they will be a threat to the people. I will be personally involved in this matter and deal with these things. I'll arrange it at once. Mu Ah replied and turned around to leave. Chapter 699, Han Jintong's Crisis. At Jinbai Hotel, Shanghai's Hong District. It was a hotel that was barely 3 stars. Having an average occupancy rate and mediocre business and with only a few guests staying there. Han Jintong's complexion was pale like a sheet, and a bloodstain painted the corner of his mouth. Scars could be seen all over his body as he sat in the corner of the room on the 7th floor, stitching his wounds. 4 or 5 meters from him, a bruised Caucasian woman with blonde hair and wearing a tattered robe was also covered with blood. Please leave, Professor. The Caucasian woman had scarlet pupils and a pair of hands with sharp nails as her white hands gently stroked a concave bronze mirror she took from her left chest. Han Jintong firmly shook his head and said, Shanjena, I may not know why they are chasing you, but you're the best student I have ever had, as well as my sparring partner for several years. Under such a situation, I won't, cough, I just can't leave you alone. A desperate expression could be seen on Shanjena's face as she said, You've helped me enough, Professor. Now that you have been seriously injured, your chance of living will be very slim if you keep staying with me. I already safely hid that skull insignia in the cabinet in the residential building we met at yesterday. I plan to send the skull insignia to Salzburg to hand it over to my big brother after ensuring your safety. It's up to fate whether this only relative of mine can survive. As I said, I won't leave you alone, said Han Jintong in a deep voice. If you want to hand over that skull insignia to your big brother, wait for this crisis to pass before you go on your own. The one who is hunting me is Grove Bear, Professor. Shanjena bitterly said. He's a gold badge assassination agent of the Stygian Club. Though the hunting squad he leads consist of only 5 people, all of them are silver badge elites. 2 of them are Beastman, 1 is a Bloodkin, and the last 2 are from the Wingmen. Those who fought with us yesterday are a Beastman, a Bloodkin, and a Wingman, while the other 2 silver badges did not appear. The most important thing is, Grove Bear himself hasn't shown up yet. But I'm sure he must have come to Shanghai. We wouldn't have a chance to run away had he appeared last night. Han Jintong frowned and asked, tell me. Why are they hunting you? A fierce expression suddenly covered Shanjena's face as she answered, the Shadow Division of the Stygian Club set up a flesh mill. Its members secretly kidnap ordinary humans from all over the world to consume their flesh and blood, devour their souls, and even use them as guinea pigs for their experiments and research in some lethal weapons. I happen to find the specific location of this flesh mill, and the note that records its coordinates is hidden in the skull insignia. Han Jintong's countenance changed, and he angrily said, I already knew that the Stygian Club was an evil organization, so I refused to join it. Even when I came back from abroad to live a normal life in China, little did I think that they were so insane as to pursue you to China and even murder ordinary people here. You had better leave now, Professor, said Shanjena. The enemy is too strong. Once they find us here, I'll take them on myself. Thus, you gotta hurry and escape. Stop persuading me, Shanjena, said Han Jintong while gritting his teeth. There's no use to go on living without honor when I can't even protect my own student. However, we won't be able to deal with these assassins by relying on our strength. It seems I need the aid of my old friends. With that said, he propped himself up with difficulty by leaning on the wall, picked up the mobile phone which had its battery thrown out, and reinstalled the battery again. He immediately took a relieved sigh after seeing that the phone was still functional. Just as he was about to dial a number, he seemed to realize something all of a sudden, and then looked at Shanjena. My 2 old friends have strength comparable to mine, while Shanjena and I together are not even a match to those 3 assassins. I'm afraid it would still be useless even if we're to call them over, and will even implicate them instead. But if I don't ask for their aid, how can I solve this imminent crisis? Han Jintong's face was constantly changing. After a long silence, Tang Xiu's face suddenly appeared in his mind. Will he help if I ask him? With his identity and ability, it will be easy for him to deal with these assassination agents. But, how much must I pay if he agrees? He kept thinking and hesitating. As Han Jintong glanced at the tattered and battered Shanjena, he finally gritted his teeth and dialed Tang Xiu's cell number. At the Paradise Club. Tang Xiu and Ouyang Lulu had just arrived. Before they even got off from the car, he heard his mobile phone buzzing. After looking at the number displayed on the screen, he connected it through and spoke, Do you have a matter for calling me? With a bit of expectation in his tone, Han Jintong said, Can I ask for your help, Mr. Tang? And, what price I must pay for you to help me? Not interested. Replied Tang Xiu and directly hang up. If Han Jintong did not say that last sentence, he would probably consider it. Yet that old man actually asked what price he must pay in exchange for his help, a notion that he was rather repugnant with. Who was it, Tang Xiu? Ouyang Lulu, who had gotten off the car, asked Tang Xiu. An unimportant person who wants me to help him, said Tang Xiu. Ouyang Lulu did not ask again and deftly coiled her hand to Tang Xiu's and smilingly said, "You will be the boss's husband of our Paradise Club from today onward. So this will be our family's business, and you can do whatever you want in managing it. If anything, all the money invested here was hard-earned by myself. So, I got no problem even if it's completely gone. At the worst, I will just go to my family to ask for money as a dowry." The boss's husband? Tang Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. It gave him a quite complicated feeling since it truly made him realize what was the meaning of the saying that a woman who has gone out of her family to marry is like something that can never be retrieved again. Ouyang Lulu had yet to be joined with him in matrimony, yet she had already begun to turn outward. At Jinbai Hotel. Han Jintang's expression was that of bitterness upon hearing the beeping tone from the mobile phone. Little did he think that Tang Xiu would be this insensible, and heartlessly refuse directly without him even asking for what help he needed. "It's no use, Professor." Shenzhena's lower lip squirmed, revealing her two fangs. There was desperation in her eyes before it turned cold all of a sudden. Her gaze shifted toward the door as a pair of broken wings sprouted out from her back. The instant they opened up, she dashed and came to Han Jintong's side almost in an instant, stretched out her hand to grab his shoulder, and sprinted toward the window to the outside. Her speed was extremely fast, leaving only afterimages in the air as her figure already rushed to the opposite side of the 5-story building. Clatter. A silver bullet shot her in a spiraling move as though tearing the space barrier and instantly hit Shenzhena's wing. A flame was then set ablaze across the wings, while Shenzhena screamed out miserably and immediately fell to the top of the building. Fortunately, Han Jintong's reaction was swift, as he instantly grabbed her and jumped to the other side downstairs the moment after. He had already been injured, thus affecting his actions at this moment. But since his cultivation level was rather high, his hand instantly grabbed the window on the second floor after the fall, smashing the glass windows with his kick and sprinting while bringing Shenzhena. He must run away. He was ready to unleash everything he had to escape. Since the enemy had already caught up with them, they must escape as far as possible, or only a dead end would greet them otherwise. Never did Han Jintong imagine that these assassins would be this recklessly bold and dared to act in a downtown area in broad daylight. This place was Chinese territory. Could it be that these assassins had no fear to annoy the powerhouses residing in China? Suddenly, a bold idea churned inside Han Jintong's mind when he sprinted fast down the corridor. He quickly kicked the door to the room at the side and took Shenzhena inside. He then grabbed a chair, dashed to the window and threw it to the floor below. He had to make noise, and it was best to create a huge mess. He did not believe that those assassins were really that bold to expose their dreadful strength amidst a big incident. Furthermore, he thought that only amidst a confusion would they possibly have a glimmer of hope to escape. Nearby. On the streets where an endless stream of pedestrians walked, passersby suddenly heard the sound of smashed glass, immediately followed by a chair and glass fragments falling down. Several people were almost hit as they screamed and ran away. The incident attracted a large number of pedestrians' eyes, as they looked up at the second-floor window of the building. Under a telephone pole, two young men wearing jackets and smoking cigarettes were standing still and looking around aimlessly. They received orders from the leaders above and went all out to find some strange people. The precise order assigned to them was that what they searched were not human beings, but vampires and demi-humans, beastmen from the Western legends. What is going on? The two young men exchanged looks and subconsciously walked toward the scene of the accident. They took out their monoculars at this time. "Brother Ya, look over there." Suddenly, the young man's body shivered. He has just raised his arm, only to find that the flashing figure had disappeared at the opposite side of the building. "What is it?" the young man called Eve curiously asked. The young man who just called him wore an excited expression and rapidly said, "I dare guarantee that was a flashing shadow of someone before, 100% sure. It's someone who can fly, for God's sake." That must be the target we are looking for. Hurry up and report it. Got it. Inside the 5-story building, Han Jintong dragged the seriously injured, retracted wings, and dizzied Shanjena and sprinted fast toward the window at the end of the left corridor. The moment he opened the window, he instantly jumped downstairs and blended in the stream of people, finally disappearing in the crowd without much effort. At the roof of the building, a robust, stocky middle-aged man with a scarlet glow in his eyes was looking at the direction where Han Jintong and Shanjena disappeared. He licked his lips and spoke to himself in a thick tone, "You can run, but you can never escape. I can still smell the dark soul scent on you from several hundreds of miles away." Chapter 700, Like a Rat in a Hole. The curtain of the night had fallen and the lights were lit. Nesting himself while quietly reading a financial magazine in Lulu's bedroom in the Paradise Club, Tang Xiu found that a huge business opportunity was contained within the widespread popularity of the internet nowadays. It had even brought impact to the business entities in real life, causing the internet superstars to earn a lot from it. As someone who reached a supremacy in the immortal world and had experienced the high-tech world of more advanced civilizations, it made him realize other channels of making money and also become aware of the several businesses that were relying upon the internet for marketing. Smart brain, it was a must-have item in the advanced civilization world, the likes of which was the mobile phone in today's society. The smart brain had complete functionality as an integrated communication and networking tool, was easy to carry anywhere, and connected to the virtual spaces shopping malls. One could even use its virtual reality hologram feature to surf the network and immerse their consciousness to enter the commercial establishments, and obtain the same experience of going out shopping in real life while staying indoors. Games, in the other hand, were also a lucrative business, such as the Elite Battleground, Speed Arena, the True Kingdom Through the Age of Warring States, and Great Interstellar Voyage. Tang Xiu once visited the star territory of the advanced civilization, during which he learned some elementary knowledge, and these were the games he was most familiar with. However, after he obtained himself a smart brain, other than trying out Elite Battleground, he just ignored the other games after he felt that there were no other contents regarding abilities he could learn in them. After all, given his status, capacity, and strength at that time, it was just a sudden impulse on a whim to hunt for novelty in a spur moment. However, he could conceive a lot of ideas just from the smart brain and games, and he could even casually write a plan to develop games. But the research and development of the smart brain was the very understructure for those products to be produced. Tang Xiu put down the financial magazine, looking vexed. If he did not lose his interspatial ring in the immortal world, he could have a treasure house in his hands now. At the very least, he had stored his smart brain gadget inside that interspatial ring. I may still have money in hand, but the rate at which I'm spending it is pretty much the same. It won't take long to use it all if I can't find another way to earn more. The earnings of the Everlasting Feast Hall are quite good, yet the internal purchase of New City and Star City requires a huge funding chain, so I can't rashly put the money to use there. The Everlasting Feast Hall itself is also thriving, but with grooming subordinate cultivators, massive purchase of cultivation resources, as well as cultivating spirit herbs and rearing fierce beasts, is kind of like burning money. Being barely able to maintain the balance is already very good. What should I do to earn more money in the shortest time? Tang Xiu was not a money grubber, but he still felt the pinch. There was actually a huge plan he kept in mind, to establish an army consisting of cultivators. In particular was the number of street children he had been looking for all over the country, which now numbered up to 1,200. The funds required to spend on their cultivation would be quite colossal as well. Back in the past, he was the type of person who was ignorant of household management, its daily necessities and affairs, and yet, he now profoundly experienced how did it feel to not have enough money. Knock, knock. The door was knocked, and Moa's voice came from the outside. "Boss, we found some suspicious leads, and our people are currently tracking them." Tang Xiu's complexion moved, and he immediately cast away the money issues in his mind. After he came outside, he asked in a deep tone, "Is it about those divergent creatures?"
Yeah.
Mo nodded. Some divergent creatures were seen in the Hong District's Jinbai Hotel today. Our intelligence personnel has conducted an investigation, and according to the traces left by them, they have already conducted a thorough search and are currently in a certain point of the border of Shanghai and Chengxi City. Judging from the trail, they should be heading toward Mtilao. Chengxi City, toward Mtilao? Tang Xiu had been there before when he first came to Shanghai and went to the car race bout through the Laoshan Highway with Qi Nan. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "What has the police found from their investigation?" The police investigation officer we bought informed us that they are also baffled and at a loss now, and there is no investigation to be conducted on the murderer who killed those 4 nightclub girls. So much so that they cannot determine the nature and motives of the criminal case, and are unable to investigate as to what or who the murderer is, said Mo. I heard, however, that the police have contacted the people from the special department, so maybe there will be people from the state soon. Never mind the police. We'll head over to Chengxi City immediately. Tang Xiu nodded. I want to see how powerful these divergent creatures are. Chengxi City, Laoshan. In a valley between the peaks of a mountain range, a small lake gleamed a reflection of the sunlight on its waving surface. On a dark spot at the lakeside, Shanjena curled up in her tattered black robe, shivering all over. Her wings were pierced with silver bullets, and though it was not a fatal injury, it still made her injury worsen. Han Jintong sat next to her, looking exhausted, panting and with a ragged breath. His face was as pale as a sheet, while his messy hair fully depicted the sorry situation he was in. Shanjena, I'm suspecting that there's something in our body, some scent, or whatever it is that can be smelled by those assassins. It makes them able to keep a close chase and pester us tightly. I only know a little about vampires like you, but you should be able to think of a key solution or any plans that can deal with this, said Han Jintong right as he caught his breath and erased the blood on the corner of his mouth. Shanjena hesitated for a moment and suddenly asked, "Professor, can you smell any particular scent on me?" No, Han Jintong shook his head. Smear my blood on both sides of your nose and then try again, said Shanjena. Han Jintong blanked, and then used a knife to cut her finger and smear the blood on both his nostrils. His complexion changed after smelling it and quickly said, "I smell a scent. It's very faint and the fragrance makes me feel good, but also brings a bit of dizziness." Shanjena's face instantly turned nasty, and said with an uneasy expression, "Quickly clean the blood on your nose, Professor." Shit, we're damned. They will keep chasing us no matter where we run. It's because they have cast the dark soul scent on me. What exactly is this dark soul scent? Asked Han Jintong quickly. It's a type of special drug for the breed race of darkness like me, and it has a magical tracking effect, explained Shanjena. Once one is smeared by this dark soul scent, the other breeds of the race of darkness can smell and lock the target even if the target's position is beyond hundreds of kilometers. They must have smeared it on me while I was unaware of it during the fight last night. Professor, I cannot implicate you any longer. Just quickly go and don't worry about me. I told you to not persuade me to leave and abandon my own student. I can never do that, said Han Jintong with knitted brows. Since you already know that it's a dark soul scent, just wash it off. They won't be able to find us once you lost that scent, right? You can't wash it off. The dark soul scent is a fragrance that enters your blood and flows with it. Shanjena shook her head and bitterly said, "It won't wear off unless I'm dead and the blood in my body cools off, or wait for half a month before it slowly vanishes. But given the situation we are currently in, let alone lasting for half a month, we can't even last for 3 days. Professor, if my guess is not mistaken, they have already caught up." A strange and jarring laughter came from the heights of the forested mountains, and the erratic echo created a gloomy and grim atmosphere in the valley. 5 hazy figures appeared in the woods from where the strange laughter came. 2 beastmen with hairy bodies, 2 wingmen who flapped their wings, and a pale-faced vampire in a black trench coat. The 5 directly surrounded Han Jintong and Shan Zhenna the instant they appeared. Hand over the skull insignia, Shan Zhenna. The drifting voice seemed not to come out from these 5 divergent creatures but seemingly came from all directions, making it impossible to judge the position. Shan Zhenna backhandedly wielded a semi-lunar scimitar while chiding and cursing towards the front. The skull insignia is not in my hands anymore, Grove Bear. I'm being chased by elite assassins, do you think I won't hide it in a safe place? You're a gold badge assassin of the Stygian Club, don't hide your head like a fucking coward. Get out. The second heir of the Salzburg house is indeed a brave one, eh? An obscure silhouette appeared in an instant. Shan Zhenna was unable to react as a punch sent her flying upside down and thrown into the lake. But in the next moment, she blasted upward from the water, spurted out a few mouthfuls of blood, flapped her broken wings and staggeringly floated on the surface of the lake. Grove Bear of the Bearkin is indeed very strong. You might be able to kill me today, but you won't get the skull insignia, and the content inside it will soon be obtained by the guardians of the Luminance Castle. Your mills will be destroyed when that time comes, and all your efforts will be for naught. Shan Zhenna's voice was a bit shrill and yet contained incisiveness and fierceness. No, 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 why would I kill you? Grove Bear waved his hand. You're a beautiful little bat in my eyes, Shan Zhenna. I love your body, and it must be mine. I will imprison your soul and ravage your body for days and nights. I want to see you screaming, moaning, and begging for mercy under my crotch. After saying said, his gaze fell on Han Jintong, raised his brows and ridiculed, You're not a vampire, and not even one of us, the divergent races. Oh, you're unexpectedly a human being, eh? This is interesting, truly interesting. Shan Zhenna turned out to have sought help from a human? Seems like this human is quite powerful, no? In my eyes, all walks of life who possess wisdom are equal. Human beings do have some scumbags, but I can find more scumbags among the divergent races, such as you, the assassination agents, replied Han Jintong with a sneer. If all human beings were of the same mind as you, the Beastman would have long taken control of mankind's destiny instead of hiding ourselves in the world of darkness, being afraid to use our strength too much, being afraid of openly hunt and kill humans in the broad daylight to consume their flesh and blood.